The Realtor180 Podcast, where valuable conversations and industry experts collide. Let's dive in and transform your business today.
What's been good in your world?
Everything's been good. Business has been great.
Yeah?
Everything's wonderful and rainbows and unicorns.
I sense sarcasm.
No, actually, things are good.
Good.
Great.
Great.
Okay.
What are we up to today?
So today's episode is going to be about perfection.
Oh, the kiss of death. It's never going to be perfect.
Yes. How to make the perfect business model, perfect everything. And why that's bad.
Just get started. Just do it.
Let's just do it.
Hit send, start going, move. What else? Next.
Easier said than done,
Oh my
buddy.
gosh, yeah.
Easier said than done. It's like, just do it. Oh my gosh. Like that Nike thing, just do it. Oh, please.
That was the best. Yeah, but oh my gosh, that was such a good campaign. That was a phenomenal campaign.
It is. It still is. And I joke, but I think that's kind of what you really should just do it.
I completely agree. So can you think of a time when you were just stuck? It had to be perfect.
Oh my gosh, that's every day.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. So I actually, I forgot the name of the author, but there is this book that you kind of, it's kind of like one of those personality tests, and it tells you what type you are. And this was as it relates to business.
Yeah.
My result was perfection. That was the personality type that I had.
Yeah.
Which it obviously said was not a good thing because it led to so many other things. Anyway,
I think it's a lot of people. Like,
right? Isn't that
I
everybody?
don't think this is a one-off. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like the vast majority of us,
Yes.
if we're putting our name on it,
That's what it is.
it's representational of us. So
Yes.
it's like,
You want it to be
get
perfect.
it right. Like,
Yeah,
make
and
sure it comes out
that's-
good.
For me in design, perfectionist because my name is on it. For my videos, my face is on it, you know, and that's the hardest, I think, for people who want to make videos and need to be the front, the face of the company. It's hard to not try to be perfect.
Has working towards perfection killed revenue? Has it stalled your start? Has it prolonged things? Has it created other problems?
I think if I were to weigh the pros and cons, most of the time it's been something that's held me back and prevented income, I guess, if bottom line.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the bottom line is the business is in business for money.
Yeah, it
Like-
has stalled the business more often than not.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, what's interesting is I sadly have done the same thing. I've definitely spent time on making just little stupid things right. I have designer friends who are like, they say, oh, you know, I spent like 4 hours pushing pixels.
Oh my God. Okay. Can I just say one thing that I
Yeah.
finally figured out to outsource? Because I am a designer, I will nitpick at my website and just random little things on my email as it comes to design to no end. I'm happy to push pixels around all day long. That's my jam. And that I figured out, and we're getting to the solution, I figured out that was kind of my little perfection thing.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like, forget it. I'm just going to give it to somebody else. So I completely let go.
Oh, interesting. Well,
Anyway.
you know, it's funny in talking about this. I'm reminded of when I taught Kung Fu many years ago. And I had this student who, she was a natural, like just a really good fighter. There's certain aspects that people pick up really, they have the natural ability of, like
Yeah.
timing and
Yeah.
rhythm.
Uh-huh.
And she was athletic and she had it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was really grooming her. And within that, there's a specific kick. It's called the side kick. And it's really powerful. It's probably of the most powerful kicks
Uh-huh.
if it's executed correctly. But it's also really technical. There's a lot of nuanced movements that all
Yes.
happen in between it.
Yeah.
And I remember one day breaking it down and showing her and trying to get her to
Yep.
understand the kick. And in Kung Fu, there's just a basic rule of go home and practice this thing 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And then come back to me when you did. And, you know, like days went by and was like, hey, where are you at? How many did you do? And she's like 5.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about? It's been days. Like, how did you do 5 kicks? And she's like, well, I wanted to get it right. And I'm like, no, do 1,000 kicks. And then days later, she comes back. I'm like, where you at? She's like, I did 5. I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing? And she's like, well, I don't want to learn it wrong. And that just like, it twisted my brain, because in Kung Fu, and I know this is not related to business, but it is, but you have to practice it.
Yeah.
And you're going to practice it wrong. Yep. And then you're going to have to relearn it after you've picked up new distinctions.
Yes. Yeah,
because your body needs to figure it out first. You need to build up those muscles, and then you'll figure out what doesn't work. And then when you figure out what doesn't work, you make more adjustments. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, you're practicing this one stupid kick 5, 6, 7, 8,000 times to get it right. And at the end of the day, it's never perfect.
No.
It's just never going to get there. And it was profound enough for me, to remember that story, but she had gridlocked on trying to get it all right the first time out. And that's just not a reality. Yeah. And I mean, I personally have done it with my newsletters. I've done it with my website, which I still hate. I've done it with, like we do photo shoots, and I'm like, this piece of furniture is not right. We have to move this over. The lighting's not right. Yes. And there just comes a point where you got to get out of your own way. Right. And just put it out there.
Yeah. And I have to say, some of the pain that comes around trying to be perfect is honestly is so time consuming. So let me talk about a very specific time when I was just learning how to make a video. Yeah. And for me and a lot of others out there, I know a lot of my students, when they make videos, that is kind of like the hardest thing, is to be in front of the camera. And you're even more critical of it than you would be if you were filming somebody else. Yeah. So when I was making a video for a Skillshare class that I was teaching, and I was new to it, and then I just couldn't nail the exposure, the audio, and I was like, oh God, I said that word wrong, and oh my gosh, it felt like out of a movie. I swear I must have done like 20 takes of the same thing. And at the end of it, I couldn't even remember what I had already said or not said. And I was so tired, and I was just like, I'm just done. I'm spent. And it was such a waste of time. Yeah. And you know what happens? I've done this multiple times. That wasn't the only time. And what I often find, the first, or it's not the first, but usually like the second take was fine. I didn't have to do the 30 other takes.
Isn't it weird?
And it's just so painful. It's like, why do I do this to myself?
What's really interesting is, so I published that book years ago, The Insider's Guide to Home Buying. Uh-huh. And when it was all said and done, like hitting that final send, that was literally cold sweats. Yeah. And I remember thinking, this is really weird, but I remember thinking, what's my family going to think? Because at the beginning I gave them shout outs. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, did I not mention enough people? Should I have mentioned more? What if I didn't say, what if I should have said something different about this person versus that person? And it wasn't
agonized over it.
I agonized over a thank you. How twisted is that? But then after I realized what I was doing, I was like, send.
Well, it's good that you realize that. A lot of the times, I know I don't realize that I get into the perfectionist loop. Yeah. And you just kind of go round and round and round. And it's not just with my videos, but like you said, I also struggle with sending emails. And, I have a fairly big size list now compared to when I first started out. But even when I was starting out, I would agonize over oh my gosh, I don't want to offend, am I saying it right? Am I saying it the right time? Is it the right font?
Oh my gosh.
Should I do 12-point or 14-point font?
I remember when I first got my license, I'm a brand new agent. I'm super excited. A colleague of mine, she had just gotten her license. Yeah. and we're like a couple weeks, like maybe a month out, like super new
Yeah.
and totally green. And like, I'm sales brain. I'm like prospect, contact, like go after, just go after meeting people and talking to them. And she calls me over to her desk and she's like, "Hey, what do you think of this font on my website?" And I literally like laughed out loud. Not the LOL, but I actually laughed and I was like, "Are you kidding? How is this generating a transaction right now?"
And sometimes it takes another person to point out the craziness that's happening in your head.
And I in this person, like I love her. She's awesome, and she's a fantastic agent now, and has an unbelievable book of business. But it's really funny that we, as solopreneurs, get caught up in.
We all know that at the heart of a realtor's business is the referral. My question to you is, are you proactively building out your trusted referral network? My goal is to connect our community with top performing agents across the country. To join our exclusive community, visit www.realtor180.com and click the Join Our Network tab to connect.
The little things.
We just grind on one little thing that's not going to benefit the overarching vision of the company, and it's not going to move it forward.
Yeah.
And then we just get stuck.
Yeah. It's so painful. The biggest part for me where I got really stuck and it was really detrimental to my business was when I was creating my course, and I had created it and I compared it to other people's who had been, doing courses forever and have a huge production budget that has a crew. And I'm comparing my course that I made myself to like Marie Forleo's, if no one's familiar with that. She's this big business kind of like guru person. Anyway, and you can't do that. But I was doing that to myself. I was expecting myself to, be as experienced as her, as good as her. And I'm a production crew of one. And I got so stuck. Like I wasn't selling my course because I was like, oh, it's not good enough. And I kept tweaking it, trying to make it better. And at the end, it was, I remember, at least like a year had gone by before I actually got over it and just was like, you know what? And it took another person to point it out to me. And it was like, had that person not pointed it out to me, I would have still like been tweaking my course.
It's completely true. Yeah. And, as a realtor, I'm chief cook and bottle washer, and I'm the head salesperson who drives revenue to the business. Yeah. One of the solutions that I found is every day when I get to the office, I start with a list, my to-do list. Mm-hmm. And it's a growing, evolving to-do list. Yeah. And within the to-do list, I immediately put a $sign.
That's a good
This is like my this is my secret of secrets. Hack. This is my hack. I put a $sign next to any task that can actually drive revenue to the business within 1 week. Mm-hmm. And that's
really good.
That's 100% possible. And then those things, let's say 10 things emerge from that list. Yeah. And then I put those in a hierarchy. What's actually the most important to least important?
So would you say in doing that, it gets you to just move forward even if something's not perfect?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because it pulls me away from having all this time to a specific amount of time. Yeah. And then, so one, I focus on the things that are going to produce income, but I have a finite amount of time. I have a window to get all of that done.
Right.
And then when I move to the next project, I have a window of time to execute. And then much like you, I have people that I farm it out to, which then I have to answer to them. Mm-hmm. And they're waiting for me.
Yes.
And they all have permission to bug me. Yeah. Of like, hey, where's this? Why hasn't gone out yet?
Yeah.
And
I think that's really smart. I think when you time frame something like that, it's a way to get out of your own way. Because if you have all the time in the world, you're just going to take your time in perfecting that particular task.
I completely agree. Yeah. And there's one of my favorite sayings a friend of mine used to always say. He's like, I'm not done, but I think I should stop.
Yeah, pencils up.
Yeah, it's like pencils up.
So true, yeah.
And like, no matter what, pencils up.
Yeah.
And I'll just caveat that with your brand is your standard. And as
Sure.
long as you've met that standard, you're fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And don't change your standard as you go along.
Right.
And
right.
And this is true. I see this with agents in social media is like, are you consistent with your social media post? No, I just can't find the right photos. And it's like, but your
I can
fans,
totally relate to that.
they want to hear about you. Actually, you're working on a project right now.
So let me tell you about that. I have a lot to share about my experience with that because I was that person on my Storyographist Instagram account.
Yeah.
Before I started my video a day project, I maybe posted once a month.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, I don't know what to post. And everyone's got these beautiful galleries. Everyone's got everything matching and they've got like nice quotes. And I'm a photographer. Everybody expects more of me. I have to have better photos than everybody. These are the things that are running through my mind. And so I think I purposely did this video a day project for the year to just get out of my own way and to just get back to creating and just be okay with not just imperfect, but crap.
Yeah.
And, so that's what I found that there are days when I have maybe 10 minutes to edit a video and what I produce is something I kind of cringe over, but I am consistently showing up every day and I'm having conversations with my community, those that are following me. And that has been more important to me and having us connect with each other than for me to produce something really perfect. So for me, I've really learned that it's okay to not have perfection. It's okay. What's most important for that anyway is the connection that you have with your community.
Yeah.
And that's what they care about. And I think, I can go on and on, but that's kind of what I got out of that. I got out of my own way.
You reminded me of when we went to, and I hate to butcher his last name. I just don't know how to pronounce it, or I don't recall it perfectly. Pete Souza, is it?
Pete Souza, Obama's photographer.
Obama's photographer, which I don't know the numbers offhand, but it was like he snapped tens of thousands of photos while Obama was in office. Yeah. And at his talk, which was fantastic, he was asked, "What's your favorite photo?" And
what he said.
You don't remember this?
Oh my God, what did he say was his favorite
photo? He said, "I don't have a favorite photo. This is my body of work."
Oh yeah. It's about the body. Yes.
It's about the body of work. It's not about
the one thing.
It's not about the one thing. So it's, for me, I have multiple newsletters that go out. It's not about the newsletter. It's about the body of work.
That's a really great point. I mean, if you think about, famous entrepreneurs, let's take Steve Jobs, for example, since we just watched a movie on him.
Yeah.
And if you were to take one company and just look at it there, like he failed with Next, and if you just looked at that.
He got kicked out of Macintosh.
He got kicked out of Apple. If you just looked at that slice of time, then you would think he's a big fat failure.
Yeah.
Like, who's this guy?
Who's this?
Who's this guy?
Yeah, he had two significant, what was it, Apple II?
Yeah.
He did that. He got basically booted from the company.
Yeah.
And then he went to create Next, which was a complete failure.
Yeah.
And his body of work at that point was two
failed
bombs.
Companies. Yeah. And then, I guess go outside of the entrepreneur industry, Beastie Boys. Their first one was a huge hit, but their second one flopped like nobody's business, and if they had just kind of stopped there, and if they're like, oh, do you know what I mean? Like, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that,
you're going to screw up.
You're going to screw up. Yeah. And you're going to have flops and might as well just do it. Get it out of the way now so you can get to the thing that is successful.
I agree. And I think that's the hardest thing is
to have the flops.
There are flops and you're going to have them and they're going to come.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But those aren't failures. Those are outcomes.
Yeah. I do want to recognize though the pain with the flops. And I think, the pain and the embarrassment, it's all valid. Mm-hmm. But I think for me, when I look at the bigger picture of like that, it's fine. moving on to the next project, that makes it feel better that this is not going to be the end. This is not the last thing I'm going to be judged on, I guess, you know.
It is if you give up.
Yeah, if you give up, that's the last thing everyone's going to... Imagine if Steve Jobs had stopped it with next.
It was like, forget it, I'm out.
And
I'm done.
That's what we would remember him by. It's like, oh, this guy got booted out of 2 companies, you know. So just, I think if anything is like, if you fail, and you will, you have, as long as you keep going and you keep trying, it's fine.
It's fine. Just keep, just go. It's fine. It reminds me of Barbara Corcoran. So all those realtors out there, listen to her content. She's awesome.
I even like her. I'm not into real estate. I love her.
She's one of my favorite people across the board. Like, she's just such a powerhouse woman in so many categories.
I love her no nonsense.
Just straight to it. Like, I'm going to let's just face it head on. But what's interesting is somebody had asked her, you know, oh, you had so many successes. She's like, are you kidding? I had so many failures. She's like, I just don't advertise those. Yeah,
so true. Here's something from my photography background. Similarly, you know, so I did get featured in Not Shot on iPhone thing, right? Yeah. And then I had that one photo that I sort of become known for. But do you know how many other photos that I took, you know, before that one came out? I had like so many awful photos. And then even in a photo shoot, so when I do a portrait session, for example, let's say I take, I don't know, like 500 photos, there will be 3 that are really good. But I had to like take a lot of different shots from different angles and try out different things before to successfully come out with just like 1 or 2 that are good.
It's true. And recently I was reading, I can't remember, I read an article. It was about hiring employees. And they said the first rule that you need to adopt is hire slow, fire fast. Yeah. So like, do your time, research them, make sure they're a good cultural fit, make sure their skill set is all there. Yeah. Everything lines up. Like, do your due diligence interviewing. But if they're not a good fit, just get rid of them fast. And that's actually what Barbara Corcoran
that's what she said.
Like, one of the things she was talking about is she was not afraid to clean house because she viewed it as it was protecting everybody else. Yeah. It wasn't that she was dismissing and letting that person go. Yeah. She was able to change the context. So yeah, I think, you know, the overarching point to this is you just got to put yourself out there and you need to be consistent. There's, I wish I was better with my quotes today. I don't know where I learned this one, but somebody was giving a talk and they said, are you a real estate agent or a secret agent? Do people know who you are and what you're doing? Oh,
that's a good one.
Or are you just hiding?
It's true.
And if you're not posting, if you're not doing the newsletter, if you're not executing on whatever the next thing is because it has to be perfect, people do business with people they know. Yeah. First and foremost. For sure, then they need to like you. Then they need to trust you. Yeah. But if they don't even know what the heck you're doing and you're not putting whatever it is out there, and you're not progressing, you're not moving forward, you're doing a disservice for your community.
Yeah, I agree. And this is something I share with my students who are trying to get in front of the camera and, you know, kind of, you know, share their knowledge with other people is that don't make it about yourself. And then this is, I think, what got me over it and finally creating videos that were helpful to people. Because when it was about me, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, I look funny, my makeup's wrong, blah, blah, blah. And it would prevent me from sharing what I knew with my community. But when I made it about them, about what they needed to know from me, then how I looked really didn't matter. Like that's not gonna, my having, not wearing the right makeup is not gonna prevent them from learning from me, if that made sense. So I think, you know, one way that I got unstuck was in making videos and then also moving forward with my business and selling my courses, is that there are people out there that need to learn this, that have been wanting to learn this, and there's not too many people teaching this thing. And by me not sharing it and, you know, putting it out there, it's a disservice to my community. And so just kind of, I don't know, for me, it felt better to think of it that way, that it was about them and me giving people what they need than about me looking good on camera.
I completely agree. And you remind me. So growing up, I was a really, really shy kid. Really bad. Like turning red, hiding behind my mom.
Yeah.
I remember for kindergarten, I had to go so I was born in November. So like I was like in a weird cycle of the school year.
Yeah.
So they didn't know if they should put me in early or put me in late.
Okay.
And they brought me in for like this interview and I hid behind the door. Like that's how shy I was.
So cute.
And years later in my teens, I figured out the reason I get shy in a conversation or in front of people is because I'm focusing on me.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's all about me.
Yep.
And I realized when I mentally, this was one of my tricks is I imagined a spotlight. And the spotlight was shining on me. And the heat of the spotlight was making me sweat and turn red and get uncomfortable. But if I move the spotlight to them.
Nice. That's a very good visualization.
And I listen to them and I empathize with them and I really focus on what it is they're wanting or needing or the conversation or just really intently listening to what they're sharing.
Yeah.
It took all the pressure off me.
Yeah.
And it's not dissimilar of, what you're sharing with your newsletter is if you focus on you and how perfect you look or how perfect the content is or the message, or whatever the BS story it is in your brain, and you really focus, is this helping them? Is this guiding them along? Is this getting them unstuck or whatever it is?
Yeah.
It frees you up to actually show them and give it to them and move it forward. And like the Beastie Boys, like sometimes you're going to put out crap.
Yes, sometimes you are. We all do.
Paul's Boutique was a flop.
It was a huge flop.
But they had phenomenal success on multiple albums after it because they didn't give up.
They didn't get stuck there. Yeah.
They didn't get stuck there. And that one thing wasn't the thing that defined them.
Right.
And I think that's really important too. Like this one thing.
It's not going to define you.
It's not going to define you. Unless it's like, unless it's way off color, way off brand.
Sure, right.
Like it will. But if you're on brand and you've already predefined the standard, just get that thing out there.
Can I offer up also the benefits of just being imperfect and moving forward? So when I was stuck, I had no data points, to base any decisions on. So like before I put out my course or like other things too, like my videos, I had no feedback one way or the other. Like, I didn't know, like I was just kind of just guessing the whole time. But once you do put something out there, like even if it's a business that flops. So for example, I had a jewelry business a long time ago. And nobody knows that.
So many amazing stories.
Right? Nobody knows that. But, even though that didn't do well, I had data points on what worked and what didn't work. And I've used that experience and brought it to this business. So I guess what I'm saying is sometimes it's just better to just move forward and course correct along the way, because at least you have some data to work with versus just kind of guessing the whole time. Like, I think this is what they need. I think this is what they don't need. So for example, my course, like I put out what I thought students needed to learn. And then I've kind of tweaked it along the way based on like, oh, what about this? What about that? And like, you know what I mean? So I think with your business, move forward and take your best guess, your best guess of like, what is the best decision or whatever. And then from there, I just like gather the data and look at it. And then now you have something to base it off of.
I completely agree. And especially if you're a solopreneur and you're building something it's never been seen before.
Yeah.
You're solving a problem that's never been solved. You're not going to have a data point.
Right.
So get it as close as you possibly can, but then get it out there to test. You have to test. Like I heard a great quote of a plane flying from San Francisco to New York is off course 90% of the time. Yeah. It's the pilot's job to keep steering it back.
I feel like that's my business. I feel like I'm off course 95% of the time.
And you will be.
I don't know what I'm doing.
But what's fascinating too with that is the more that you do in business, like the bigger you get, the more your problems morph and change. Like you're never going to not have a problem. Like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah,
always
yeah.
going to have to solve something. And so my reprogramming is let's go find a bigger, better problem.
Yeah.
And then who can I recruit to solve that
Right.
instead of like, let's get stuck on this thing that's really not a problem and make it a big problem so that I can just feel good about tweaking it
Yeah.
1,000 times and getting nothing out into
Yeah.
the world to enjoy.
Yes.
Is the moral of the story.
Yeah, I think so. If we were to wrap this up, I think
Which we should.
From our experiences, one is just put it out there, because that one thing is not going to be the thing that defines you. Just keep going, right? As we've both found. And then the second thing is that once you do put something out there, it'll help you make better decisions, because now you have some data points to kind of do things off of, right?
I mean, it's really, it's funny is if you ask somebody, like ask somebody what they want to do, 90% of the time they won't know. But if you ask them what they don't want to do,
they'll know.
Like, hey, what kind of work do you not want to do? They'll be like, I don't want to do blah, blah, blah. And they'll run through the list. But rarely do they know what they want to do. Yeah. And like, it's really easy to lock up and be fearful. Yeah. And to not do. Yeah. Because we play out all the negative scenarios, and our brains are wired to steer us around that stuff. But in this case, you got to steer into it. Yep. You just go for it. Just do it.
Yeah, and
Nike,
I think
Nike was right.
Just do it. So the last thing, the third thing, which I think is the most important, that has been most transformational for me, was to not make it about me.
It's true.
So with that,
that's a great wrap up right there.
That is a great wrap up. So we hope you got a little bit of if you were stuck, that we've unstuck you.
Well, we've unsticked.
We've unsticked you.
Wait, was that not perfect? Did I not say that?
Did I not? Oh my gosh. Yeah, and also like I say, like English is my second language. So I'll say a lot of things kind of the wrong way, and sometimes with an Australian accent, you will notice.
I don't think I ever noticed that.
So, but I'm doing my best here, and it's not about me.
It's more about just doing rather than doing it perfect every single time.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Realtor 180, where industry experts elevate your business. Be sure to subscribe and share this episode with a friend. Until next time, keep thriving.